Hey there, and welcome back to the B2B Marketing Asia podcast. I'm your host, Joe Escobedo. Excited on the show, we have Ned and Laura from Bambu. One of the reasons I wanted to have you guys on the show is I've seen the news digest that you guys have created, and I thought it was very fascinating because I feel like a lot of brands should become media companies, but you guys have already done that. So we'll talk a little bit about the idea behind it, the process, and some of the results. But first off, let's go ahead and take a look at what it is that you guys have created.
Hi, and welcome back to WealthTech Digest, where I cover the weekly happenings in the digital wealth market. My name is Ned Phillips, so let's dive right in. Our first story today goes into the details of a massive seed funding round led by SIA and Speed Invest on a white label fintech platform. One could say that this is one of the upsides of the open banking regulations, which have swept jurisdictions like the UK and the EU. As a result, many challenger banks have appeared. Their proliferation have provided to be a headache for some of the incumbent banks. As with all gold rushes, however, those who sell the picks and shovels are usually the ones that win. That is why startups like Tokyo have turned their focus on full stack platforms that other people can launch their fintech startups and products upon. With Tokyo's white label digital finance SaaS platform, anyone can launch a new fintech.
It looks amazing. Like I said, first time I saw it, I thought it was coming from the news or something like that. But I realized with Laura that it's something you guys have created. So take me through, how did you even come up with the idea to create this WealthTech Digest?
Okay, I think for us, we really wanted to grow our brand awareness. Third and credible brand is essential for the company's growth. And so with that, we wanted to start developing more content, giving our thoughts and opinions and feedback that's relatable to the fintech industry. Maybe a bit more relation to this, why we want to do it is because, typically people would rely on credible sources, people who actually have the knowledge on industries or information that we don't know. So we rely on them. And that's how we want to be positioning ourselves at Bambu. We want to be that somebody that you turn to for the knowledge, especially for the fintech industry. And why this video? I think because in this industry, there's a lot of articles and white papers, very boring, traditional types of content going out. So why not a video which is more entertaining, it's bite-sized, and people can actually listen it on the go? Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah. Ned, I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, too. How did Laura get buy-in on this? Because this is something that not many folks are doing, like you said, taking the traditional way of these long ebooks or white papers, breaking that down into these daily bite-sized digests that you guys have created. How did you guys come up with that together? How did Laura manage to get the buy-in from you on that?
A little secret is that Laura was you're looking at the first two employees at Bambu. So the very first employee at Bambu was Laura. I was the founder, and then the very next person was Laura. So I don't come from a marketing background, but I'm very much driven by sales. And I'm a old school sales guy, or I was until recently. So I used to believe you go door knocking, cold calling. But in the new world, even before COVID, it was really clear. I'm a bit of a Gary Vee fan, content. And I remember the first video we did, we had an iPhone and I was just standing there. We had an iPhone and just recording it, and it was better than nothing. But I think Laura was discussing this. We also were talking with a company in the States who was telling us about this. They invested in Bambu, and they're like, you guys, called SaaS Growth Ventures, you guys need to have proper content. And they showed us the way to do it. But the key point that you said, it looks like Bloomberg, it looks like the news. And that was the biggest thing that when I discussed this with Laura, we realized, okay, let's do something that no one else can do. They think they can't do. They probably could do if they tried. And that was the key. How do we set ourselves apart? And so that was the real trigger. Okay, if we're going to do this, let's do it properly. And that's how we went about it.
Absolutely. No, you guys definitely did it properly. It looks like a legitimate, like I said, news station you guys created. So I want to hear about the podcast, the process in a minute. But before that, I love how you mentioned that you are kind of an old school sales guy. And I think this is great for those similar people in the mindset where they think it's cold calls and cold emails, knocking on people's doors, things like that. But to your point, I love how you've made the switch. You're developing the content. So take me through the process behind it, because I know as someone who creates content, I know it's not that easy. So how do you even start the entire process behind it?
I'll let Laura take you to it, but we had to start with, we had to go buy all the equipment. Laura, why don't you?
Obviously, we need the equipment. I don't say we have a very official media studio. It's actually one of our meeting rooms that we have converted. Obviously, getting the right cameras, the lighting, the green screen, which is very important, right? Those equipment was how we started the process. Obviously, we had guidance in terms of like what type of materials to buy. And I think from there it escalated. I have a really great passion in doing production stuff. So this was really exciting for me. And I think that more on the technical side, we had to get all this equipment. But how we started the process was really looking at what kind of news were out there already and working with a copywriter with the Sessa's Growth Ventures company as well. And we worked really closely to gather the right information that we wanted to talk about on the digest. And that's where we get them to rephrase it and really talk about it more. And Nat would also put in some feedback on the content.
And one other thing just to say on that is we realized, so we're learning all the time, but we did use a company as well that helped us, because how do you make it look like Bloomberg or CNN? Getting the comments, getting the news. And you know what I get most of all, Joe? People say to me, have you moved to Silicon Valley? Because we have Silicon. So just even that piece of content, we had to decide, should we put a Singapore skyline, a San Francisco skyline, all those little bits. You're right. It took a lot of thought process.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many different elements that, like you said, you have to plan out beforehand. So it sounds like there's a lot of that goes behind it. Is that just simply a green screen, and then you do a lot of that in post-production? Is that how it works out in terms of all the graphics and things on screen?
That's the secret.
That's a secret.
We're not in San Francisco.
Well, it's all post-production. So green screen, we've got a camera, tripod, green screen, lights, all that type of stuff, record it. Then it's, green screen behind. Then the ticker is the same each time. Then the words are basically sound bites. We use, Laura, what do we call it?
Teleprompter.
Teleprompter. So the phone fixes into the camera. So I look at the camera, the phone, I'm looking at the screen of the camera we have. I read the words off there. It's a teleprompter. Then we take snippets of those words. They are then put up on the side that you see. But there's all component little bits. But in essence, it's me on a chair and a green screen, and everything done is done in post-production.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate you taking through, because a lot of techies will ask, how did you guys set it up and stuff like that? So it makes a lot of sense. And Ned, from your end, how did you, because you look like a legitimate broadcaster. Was that always the case? Did you always feel comfortable, or how did you improve in terms of what we see today? What was the process like for you as an on-camera personality?
The reality is I like the camera. I don't know why. I don't think I was ever destined to be in front of the camera, but for whatever reason, in the world of fintech, I think as an entrepreneur, you're always selling the story. Certainly for me, as a non-tech, I'm the business. So I've stood on stages, I've stood in front of VCs, and I've realized partly I'm passionate about it, partly I don't mind the camera, so I don't get tense. I speak in front of people a lot. I used to before COVID. I don't know, honestly, Joe, maybe I just like the sound of my own voice too much, so it doesn't bother me. That might just be it. But no, it wasn't something where I had to kind of build up all of my nervous energy. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to be in front of a camera. I was like, yep, let's do it. So I suppose for whatever reason, maybe because I've been a sales guy for 30 years, being in front of the camera is something I've always feel comfortable with.
That's great. It definitely looks like you're very comfortable. And like I say, you're definitely a natural. So once again, I'd love to hear what has been some of the feedback, because like I said, I saw it and I obviously had to get in touch with you guys. What's some of the feedback you're getting from the audience on this?
I'll maybe go first and then Laura. So for me, the biggest feedback, we get more leads every day than we've ever had. Now, we also have a podcast. We have this news digest. We have a panel. But the number one feedback is the best for Bambu. We have more incoming leads. So financial institutions call us and go, hey, we need some technology that builds wealth. That's what we build, saving investment apps. And you seem like the right people. Now, I can't tell you for sure that's the digest, but ever since we started doing content. So that's what I've seen. Laura, from your side?
I think within the last month itself, we've seen a lot of growth within the website and even on our LinkedIn channel. More followers, more views, more click-throughs. So that's really good. Like what Ned said, it might not just be the digest. It could be a combination of all the other media stuff that we're pushing out as well. So definitely, since we started about 5 months ago, we've seen really lots of growth. And I think that's really good. And that's what we want people to continue following us and reading our content and just being part of the conversation as well.
Absolutely. And Ned, I love how you said that people are coming to you and saying you're the right people. I think one of the advantages of putting yourself on camera is people know Bambu, but they also know you. So they feel more relatable to you. You're perceived as an expert. And so they want to reach out directly to you. I think this is what a lot of people forget in B2B is at the end of the day, you're dealing with people. So yes, you're dealing with Bambu, but you're dealing with Ned, you're dealing with Laura, you're dealing with the other team members. And so I
And
think the videos, yes.
I was going to say, we have a podcast where we had a guy on the podcast called Chris Beal, and he said something: people buy technology from people they trust, and the way to be trustable trustable, is that a word? Probably not. Likable and trustworthy, I think that's the right word, is to put yourself in front of them and talk about it. And the other feedback we get is, I think, Joe, a little bit that you said is, wow, how did you do that? And it's funny because I think they perceive we must be a good tech company, therefore we must be good at what we do in wealth. Now, filming the digest doesn't translate to the APIs I build for wealth, but I think in some people's mind it does. And we often get asked, how do you do it? And I think that's the best feedback. Or even one person wrote to us and said, I'm so excited I was on the news. I'm like, I don't know if you were on the news. He was super excited that he was on the news, whatever that means, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think as an audience member, I think one of the things I notice is you guys put a lot of time and effort into it, and the quality is there. So I think it all ties back to what you do as a business too. If you are putting that much time and sweat and tears into what you're doing on the marketing and content side, imagine what you're doing on the business side, which is the one that drives the sales and revenue. So for me, it is all connected. And I think the fact that you guys have put so much into it is very evident from the get-go.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And Laura, you mentioned the podcast company doing some other things. How does this all come together?
So we are trying to build a lot more content. So like we started off with the podcast, that really went very well. And then we started with the digest. We're generating a lot more visual content basically, because traditional way is more on the article side, because we think these content will actually push us through and step us ahead of our competitors. So actually we're working on a very big project, which is actually putting out more content than anyone else can think of, hopefully. So it's a big project, and do keep a lookout on Bambu, and you'll see in a few months.
Awesome. Definitely looking forward to that. But I love how you have, like I said, the different channels. So people who, are on LinkedIn, they can see the videos for the podcast and the audio. I love the ways you guys have broken it up, and it makes perfect sense to me. I love it. That's one of the reasons I had to have you guys on the show. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and behind the scenes. I think I personally learned a lot, and I think others who are in a space where they're stuck, they're doing the same thing over and over, can take a look at this and say, look at what Bambu's doing. They're doing something completely different. Going back to your point, they're cutting through the clutter. They're building that brand awareness. And I'm heartened to hear that it's generating, leads in business as well, too. That's the holy grail of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing, as Laura says, is I have this, I always happy, never satisfied. I love this phrase, which means you'll wait till you see what Laura and the team are doing next. I think what you've seen is only half of what we've actually been producing. We're going to actually become not a media company per se, but on our site, we want to say, look, we are generating more content. And we've just been recording a new show. We hope you'll like it. It might not be quite Netflix quality, but that's what I said to aim for. Let's aim for a Netflix quality show. Whether we achieve it or not, Joe, you can be the judge when we release it.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm really excited for that. Yeah, we're going to have to do part 2 of this series because, like I said, can't wait to hear what you guys come out to next.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Like I said, I really appreciate you sharing your insights. And for everyone watching and listening, you have to share this. You have to rewatch it because there's some really practical tips in there, behind the scenes stuff. So thank you guys so much as always, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.
Thank you.